About 50 years ago, Dolores Huerta was a school teacher in California, and she could no longer take the daily sight of barefooted children coming to class hungry, and decided she had to do something about it to deal with the root causes. And so, in the best tradition of social work, looking at an evidence-based practice of teaching, of learning, of drawing from the community, she joined together with Fred Ross, a graduate of USC, who convinced her to join a group called the Community Service Organization. CSO was founded and immediately got involved in social action, electing the first Latino member of the city council, Ed Roybal, and Dolores was there campaigning for him, and she was there when he ran for Congress and became the first Latino congressman from the Los Angeles area. And she joined together with this other scrawny young man from the Los Angeles CSO, a guy named Cesar Chavez. And they together were convinced by Fred Ross that they ought to go out and organize the farm workers, the parents of those children who came to school barefooted and hungry. And after a while, it turned out that because of internal conflicts, CSO could not be the organizing agent for the farm workers. So Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez split off and formed the United Farm Workers of America. The rest is history, but it is studded with so much in the way of accomplishment and achievement. Dolores Huerta is the one who represented the farm workers in Sacramento, secured legislation allowing people to vote in the language of their origin, allowing people to take driver's licenses in Spanish, allowing persons who are not full citizens to receive public welfare, public assistance. She was in the forefront of every struggle for human dignity beyond the farm workers. I should tell you that this diminutive woman negotiated the first contract of farm workers with big corporate agribusiness, Shenley contract, made history, and really held them to it and got from them, well, I'll let her tell you the story, because she tells it so much better. She went on to organize the famous grape boycotts, with which we're all familiar. It was the only tool that people who did not have the protections of the National Labor Relations Act could turn to. And so this meant she went out into the community and organized communities east and west, went to Washington, D.C., finally got the Agricultural Labor Relations Act passed. There are more things about Dolores that she helped to achieve to make this a better world for all of us than you have time to hear me tell you here tonight, this afternoon. Dolores is, even today, the Vice President Emeritus of the United Farm Workers, and she's president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation, and we'll be working together with USC on a very special project that she discussed with the Dean today. It's with a great deal of pleasure and a thrill that I introduce my good friend, and Dolores Huerta.
Thank you very much. This is definitely an award that I will treasure. Social work has always been, I guess, one of my great loves, as I told the students earlier, next to dancing, right? And when I started going to college, that was my major. But then got a divorce and had 2 little children, so I switched it to my major to education, so I could have the same hours as my children did going to school. And it's interestingly enough that we know that, and I spoke to students earlier, that the social workers are sort of like the Marines, right? Because they're there at the front of all of the issues that we have in our society. They're the ones that are supposed to go out there and help people. But I think the greatest thing that I found out, because in the farm workers movement, although we were organizers, doing service work, as we called it, was a very big part of our organizing, because we were out there trying to tell workers that they could change their own futures by organizing. They didn't know who we were. Cesar and I had both been working in the Los Angeles area with the community service organization, and so we were going to, meet people in the San Joaquin Valley that, although there were some CSWA chapters up and down the state, we were going to be talking to farm workers that had never been organized. So in order for them to really have some faith in what we were doing, we did service work. We fixed their immigration papers. We did their income taxes. We went down and fought with the welfare department. We had just gotten a law passed in Sacramento under CSO that was called the Aid to Needy Children of Unemployed or Underemployed Parents. And of course, all the farm workers, because their wages were so low, were all considered underemployed. So we would take them down there to the welfare department to be able to get them some type of assistance. That was before food stamps, of course, And so it was doing that work and doing the service work that we did kind of do that social work to help the farm workers have faith in the mission of organizing themselves into a union. And it worked. It absolutely worked. But the other great thing about doing this work at the front lines is that you really find out what public policies need to change. I remember in CSO, we found out that a farm worker could not get surplus commodities. The food that they have stored up to give away to poor people, farm workers couldn't receive that. You know why? Because in order at that time, in the late 50s, early 60s, in order to be able to get the surplus food, you had to have lived in one county for 12 months. And you had to present rent receipts or utility bills for 12 consecutive months. And if you did not do that, you were not eligible for the surplus food. Isn't that ironic? Farm workers could not get the surplus food. So that was one of the first things we had to change that policy so that the farm workers could get that food. Because farm workers didn't have unemployment insurance at that time. I told the students earlier today that a farm worker, when we first started organizing, said they will put a man on the moon before farm workers get unemployment insurance. And we did. We put a man on the moon in 1969. We didn't get unemployment insurance for farm workers until 1975 when Jerry Brown was elected governor of the state of California, because Reagan had vetoed unemployment insurance 3 sessions in a row after it passed the legislature. So doing this kind of work, it makes you see what policies need to be changed. We were working very hard to end the then Bracero program. And, a lot of people don't know this because you kind of have to be down there again on the front lines. But I remember in Stockton, where I was raised, during World War II, they had the prisoners of war from Japan and Germany in little neat white cottages there at the naval base. And they would bring them into town, take them to the movies, take them out sometimes to do farm work, etc. But the Mexican farm workers that had come in from Mexico to help the United States, during this labor shortage that we had where we sent so many people off to the war, they were behind barbed wire in these ugly, ugly labor camps. And their own relatives were not permitted to visit them. So that was an issue that we had to take on and say, wait a minute, who are the prisoners here? These are people that came in to help the United States to lift their crops during that time. And as you know, this is one of the hot issues that we have today in today's news is that, again, our administration wants to start that old Bracero program again, bring people in, work them, send them back to their native land, right, without giving them a chance to become residents or citizens of this country. So I really honor the work of social work. But the one thing, of course, that we have to do is sort of connect the work that we do with the political world so that people out there that are the recipients of any type of assistance that they might get have to realize, and they have to be made to realize, by the people that are helping them is that they have a responsibility, that they've got to do something for themselves. The biggest thing that, Caesar got through my head, and it was very difficult because in CSO we were so used to doing things to help people and not making too many demands on them except that they come to a meeting once in a while, pack the city council chambers, or, get involved in registering voters, et cetera, getting out the vote. But when we started organizing the farm workers, it was a whole different thing, because we had to have these workers understand that the only way that they were going to ever get any change in their lives is that they had to do it for themselves. And you're talking to people that were only earning 70 cents an hour at that time when we started, talking about going into homes where people had dirt floors, cardboard, and wooden crates for furniture, whose children were hungry, and say to them, you have to join the union, you have to pay $3.50 a month dues, which in today's world would be like saying to somebody, you got to pay $40 a month dues to start this organization. And but that was the biggest thing, to make them understand that they had to be responsible, and it worked. We were able to initially get 1,000 workers to start the organization. We had a convention, and of course the rest is history. We had strikes and boycotts and everything. But these workers, these poorest of the poor, are the ones that marched to Sacramento, 300 miles, marched to the state capitol to get unemployment insurance, the right to organize, the Agricultural Labor Relations Act, and all of these different laws passed to help workers. And somehow it would be so great if we could kind of expand this whole area of social work and community organizing, because God knows that we need it so much in our country today. We have 1 million more poor people this year in our United States of America, which means you're going to need how many more social workers, right, to be able to go out there and help the folks out there that need it. And, of course, eventually to try to make it so that they like the farm workers, because once those farm workers got their union contracts, they didn't need the food stamps. I remember workers coming up to me and saying, hey, we don't need the food stamps anymore. Isn't that great? When we had our workers in the Salinas Valley, by the way, we don't have those contracts anymore. We had a big devastation in 1973 where the Teamsters came in. They made a little plot with Frank Fitzsimmons of the Teamsters Union, the head of the Farm Bureau Federation, Alan Grant, and President Nixon. And they cooked up a little plot to get rid of the United Farm Workers, and they did. I mean, they got rid of a lot of our contracts, so we've been trying to catch up ever since then. But when we had those contracts in Salinas, California, I remember going out there to the fields with one of my daughters, and she said, Mom, look, and I thought something was wrong. I said, what's wrong? She said, look at all the new cars, right? The workers had bought new cars. The workers bought homes. In Delano, California, the first year of our first contracts, 11 farm worker children went to college for the first time. One of them is a doctor, Dr. Chavez, And this is what happens when people have that kind of economic stability, that they can send their children to schools and they can buy a home and they can be stable. And so I think that has to be kind of the end result of the work that we do, is to help people so that they can help themselves, so that they can become not only socially stable, but also economically stable. And we know that that is harder and harder to do because poverty is increasing. The laws that help poor people become union members are getting more difficult, as we see by this Proposition 75 that's going to be on the ballot on Tuesday. It's aimed directly at the public employees, right? And so while we have the political spectrum is more geared right now towards those that are very wealthy, and it's more against poor people. But we can't give up. We've got to keep people, make them understand that they do have the power to make those changes. They have the power through organization. They have the power through advocacy. They have the power through participation. Just doing something as simple as registering to vote, getting out there to vote. And in the farm workers movement, we've been very effective at passing legislation, not only because of the advocacy, but also making sure to support people that are going to get elected, that are going to support the farm workers and working people. So and the people that come out there to help us knock on doors, they're not always U.S. citizens. A lot of them are just what they call green carders, right? They have residency, but they're not citizens yet. And a lot of them are undocumented. They don't even have residency. We have one congresswoman as an example, Hilda Solis, who's a very great advocate in Congress right now. And she is a Democrat. She ran against another Democrat because she felt that he was kind of a Republican light, I think, person, you know. So she ran against him, and no one endorsed her, actually. You know, the congressional colleagues did not endorse her. They were supporting their own colleague. But it was the working people that helped to get elected. And farm workers drove all the way from Fresno, California to Los Angeles, from Blythe, which is near the Arizona border, 4 hours to come to L.A. to knock on doors to get that woman elected. And she won by 30 points. And this is just, you know, just the power of the people, right? And so that's what I hope, you know, that can be incorporated into the education of social workers, because we just helping people is not enough, you know. In fact, it can actually make people remain victims forever. And we don't want people to remain victims. We want them to understand that they have to have a responsibility to participate in the betterment of their own lives. And if we can teach them that, and sometimes I know that as social workers, people are working for an agency, they can't get involved on the political level, but what they can do is encourage the people that they help to get involved. And I know when I say this, it's kind of like, yeah, you can talk about it, but it's very difficult to do because people have so many people that they have to manage, it's almost impossible. So maybe we need to pass a law someday, like the one they have for nurses, you know, limit the number of families or people that a social worker has to help, right, you know, so that people can do a more effective job. But I'm very honored to receive this gift. I do have put many, many hours of volunteer. In fact, in the United Farm Workers, we were all volunteers because we didn't get paid. And it wasn't right up until the time Caesar died, you know. We got our subsistence, we got our rent, we got our food, $10 a week. Later on, I went up to $40 just for we could feed our families, right? But we never really got wages and salaries. It's not that way anymore, by the way. You know, our new president, Arturo Rodriguez, now people do get salaries, right? But all the time that Caesar was president, people got stipends. So it really was all volunteers. And so I guess if I could count my volunteer years would be, this year I'm celebrating 50 years of volunteer service. 50 years of volunteer service. And my new job as a volunteer is I've started a foundation for community organizing. It's called the Dolores Huerta Foundation. I use my own name because people know me, so I can raise money. And basically we're hiring organizers, we're training them, we're sending them into communities to help people come together and to take on the issues. We recently had a march in Lamont, California. It's a farm worker area where wages had not been increased for about a decade almost. And we had this march with women and children at the front. We had a big banner that said, "Sueldos justos," just wages. Close to 500 people marched, 15 growers, some of them which hire 3,000 workers, raised the wages from 60 to 80 cents an hour, right? Just with the people marching, right? So this is the kind of work that that we're doing. And there's a lot of young people out there that want to do things, but there's no vehicle for them to organize. So we raise money, we hire organizers, because these days you do have to pay people, right? Not like when we had the $10 a week. And train them, show them how to do community organizing, send them into a community. And we're also now working on a school for organizing, so that way other organizations can send us their people and we can teach them the lessons that we learned by this great man whom Mr. Fertig mentioned, Fred Ross Sr. And you probably never heard of him. Maybe some of you did. But I'm sure a lot of you, if you saw yesterday's paper, you saw the obituary for Eduardo Roybal, the first city councilman elected to Los Angeles. Well, the man who did his campaign and showed him how to organize was Fred Ross Sr. He's also the fellow that got Caesar involved in organizing, got myself involved in organizing. The Supreme Court Justice Cruz Reynoso was one of the people who came out of Fred Ross's organizing. So this man was just a great human being, and we could spend a whole hour talking about what he did, and he was an alumni of USC. So that was so wonderful that one of your own, it's really, I call him the godfather of the Chicano movement in California, the godfather of the Chicano movement, Fred Ross Sr. And we're hoping someday we can really honor him the way he should be honored, and hopefully we will be working on that. So anyway, thank you very much for this beautiful honor, and I'm sure that we'll all get together again sometime. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.